Join me as we explore the remarkable odyssey of landscape photographer Isabella Tabacchi. Isabella's artistic brilliance is showcased internationally through her emotive and dreamlike photographic style. A Hasselblad Heroine and a significant presence in the Hasselblad Masters 2021 Grand Jury, she's been named Photographer of the Year at the Moscow International Photo Awards and has secured various accolades since 2016. Her mastery of landscape photography shines brightly, highlighted by a third prize win in the International Landscape Photographer of the Year 2020 and her inclusion in the prestigious ILPOTY 2022 book. Serving as a juror for esteemed awards like the Epson International Pano Awards, Annual Photo Awards and Canarian Photo Awards, Isabella's expertise guides emerging talents. Embark on a visual journey as Isabella's lens captures the enchanting landscapes of the Italian Dolomites, the rugged allure of the Kamchatka Peninsula, the mystique of the Lofoten Islands, Iceland's otherworldly panoramas, Iran's evocative vistas, and a tapestry of other destinations. In this episode, we peel back the layers of Isabella's extraordinary voyage, delving into her artistic vision and the magic behind her emotive creations. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, Isabella. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
Hello. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure. I love your work and been following you across a number of social media platforms for a little while, and really wanted to have a chat to you today a bit about why you do what you do and how you do it. But mostly I'm really focused on that motivational side of things. What is it that actually makes you want to be a photographer, and a landscape photographer in particular? So why don't you tell people who you are in the first instance, and then we can get on to some of the media questions then.
Sure. Perfect. Okay. Yes, I'm Isabella Tabacchi, a landscape photographer based in northern Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been photographing since a long time, since a lot of years. I started actually seriously 10 years ago, around 10 years ago, but before I've been photographing since the childhood, because I always loved nature. I always loved to discover. I always had creativity in my soul, and since 10 years I've been traveling. First I started in the Alps, and then I started to travel to make some new experiences and also to develop my style.
Sure.
Until today.
Okay. What was it that actually got you started with landscape photography?
That the landscape nature helps me a lot to express the sensibility. Actually, is something like subconscious. I couldn't take pictures and express myself through other kind of photography. I also tried a lot. Before starting actually seriously with landscapes, I tried other kind of photography, but with landscape I can express myself and my creativity much more. When I go around nature, the mountains especially, but also other kind of landscape sceneries, I feel like complete, and that's why I could never stop taking pictures of landscape.
So I guess I'm really interested in what you were saying there about expressing yourself. What is it that it is? What is it that you're trying to express? What is it that you're trying to get across to the viewer?
My emotions, my memories, the feelings that I feel when I am in nature. Indeed, my approach to landscape photography is also very artistical. There is also some post-processing, and through this post-processing, I express also my mood, the emotions, and that is always like subconscious. I also don't realize what really I'm trying in landscape, but it just comes from my soul.
Yeah, okay. So when did you notice that it became something artistic for you, as opposed to, because most people start out with photography and they see something pretty and they'll take a snapshot of it. Could be a house, could be a mountain, could be a dragonfly or a flower or something. And then they then start, as they go through their journey, they then start to develop an artistic style. Where did that style start for you, and where did I guess the art start, as opposed to just taking a photo of something that you liked?
For me, it started in 2016, around 2016, when I discovered the post-processing with luminosity masks, and my approach into developing some much more three-dimensionality, creating three-dimensionality, 3D effects in this landscape photography. And since then, I realized that I could stay like hours, like staying here in front of the computer, editing one picture after the other, because I was so passionate about it.
Okay.
And then I started to see that I was like inspired by landscapes, but not just the landscape, but the mood. And from the landscape, from the approach into the location on the field, looking for strange compositions, particular special points of view, to see also the same location several times, and then a different approach with editing, depending also on the mood, on the weather, on which was the kind of weather or mood of nature in landscapes I visited.
Okay. And was it trying to express that mood that generated the artistic approach to editing? Yes. Or was the editing an approach to channel the artistic viewpoints that you were trying to bring across?
No, I think it's a mix. It's a mix between, I think, art. I think nature itself is a form of art. And on the field, when I'm shooting, I look for the form of art that represent that place, and that then it's a mix, of course. For me, the most important thing is to find an original, very special approach, also, especially on the location. Yep. Then, of course, when I'm editing, I take the best to make the best of the landscape. For example, I make the post-processing focusing very much on what I wanted the eyes of the people that watch my pictures have to focus on. For example, a kind of tree, some leading lines, some natural leading lines, for example.
Sure. So when you're thinking about your work, are you doing pre-visualization? Are you thinking about what your composition is going to be before you go into the field? Or are you going into the field and then reacting to what you're seeing, reacting to the light, reacting to the landscape itself? I'm just interested, is it more pre-planning, or is it more spontaneous and reactive in the field?
Sometimes, yeah, I have an idea of which kind of compositions there could be, of natural element that could be in a landscape, but often I get there with maybe an idea of some things that I would like to capture, but then I find other very original special composition that I don't expect at all. I just and this is the best part, in my opinion, because you discover the art, you discover art on the landscape, in the location, on the location, and sometimes you don't expect what you can find, because sometimes the conditions are different. Sometimes maybe you don't really know especially when I don't really know the place, maybe I can expect something on nature of a location, but maybe I find those special compositions, the special elements that create some shapes, some of shapes, of little lines, of ways to lead to the main subject that I feel like very happy and like yes, I feel very surprised always.
So it sounds like personal expression plays a very big role in your type style of photography. How do you start to infuse your style and vision into your images, both in the field but also in post-processing?
Yes, in the years, during the years that I spent into the field. Of course, at the beginning, when I started first, I didn't, maybe I couldn't be as good as now to find this kind of compositions or special composition, special stuff, or special moods, and often it was not easy because some locations that are totally different from some locations I visited before. It was sometimes it was really difficult to find something like the mood, the inspiration. So sometimes I had to think a lot about the approach I wanted to have in some locations. And in the years for sure, I developed my capabilities into creating pictures, into be creative with compositions on the field. And for sure, in 2016, I was not capable as now, for sure. Now, for example, happens that I visit locations that I never seen and immediately find something. And that is amazing. It's amazing. Yes. So maybe yes, for sure there is some work, some experience. It's very important experience.
Yeah. Okay. What's your view on how to deal with experimentation in your work? In that process, obviously, from where you started off in 2016 to where you are now, you're going to try new things, try new techniques, try new editing techniques, etc. And some of those are going to fail. Some of those are going to be a success. And the ones that you success, you obviously build on. But how do you deal with the failures where you go out and you don't come back with the images that you expected, or don't come back with what you wanted, or you're having trouble working through images in the editing suite? How do you deal with those problematic times, which every photographer has, where they're going, yeah, this isn't working?
Yeah, sometimes, yes, of course, in so many years, sometimes I went on the location and maybe there were not the perfect conditions. Often I always try to get, I always like to get the best of each kind of condition, like weather condition. And every time I try to be creative, to find always something. But of course, in so many years, in so many moments, so many traveling, of course, sometimes there are often some raw files that I never edited in my hard disk that are still there because I don't throw anything, almost anything. And yeah, sometimes happened, but often I'm very stubborn into finding something, into finding a way to make every condition special. And not just for editing, of course, especially with compositions, with creativity.
Sure.
I think it's almost always possible to find something.
How do you deal with things that you've looked at? As you said, you've got those raw files that are sitting there that you haven't edited. Do you ever go back to them and get inspired by things that you hadn't perhaps seen before, or you've changed your editing techniques, or you've found something new that you want to experiment in some of those images? Do you ever do that? Go back into your catalogue and look for something that you didn't quite see before?
Yes, a lot of times. Because often when after a travel, yes, there are periods that I travel a lot. So often I get back also to some files because maybe in some days I'm more inspired about editing some files that maybe have a kind of weather conditions. And often I also edited files that are like several years old because it happens a lot of times because maybe yes I learn maybe I manage to experiment new techniques, new editing techniques, new ways to make these raw files better, to accentuate better some conditions, some things that were in the image, and then I return back often because so some days I'm more inspired about maybe editing some very moody and some very dark landscapes and some very cloudy landscapes. Other days I'm more inspired about sunny landscapes, about colorful landscapes. It depends. It totally depends on the day.
I've got to admit, with the AI denoise in Room and Adobe Camera Raw, I'm diving back into quite a few old night shots of mine that were kind of underexposed and really, or I've had to pump the ISO up so high that they're really noisy, and they were never going to see the light of day until something like the AI denoise came along. How do you fit those new techniques in? Is it just something that you do as something new is released, or as you learn something, do you just add that to your kit bag and keep adding to your workflow? Or I guess I'm interested in how your workflow has evolved from where you started doing post-processing into where you are now.
Yes, often, yes, when I, for example, usually, yes, from 2016 and even the period before, the years before 2016 until now, happened that then I re-edited some files, especially when during pandemic. That when I couldn't travel, I didn't have so much to do. So at the end, I had re-edited a lot of pictures that I didn't like anymore. I said, oh no, here, it was too contrasted. This is not, I don't like it. Now I want to try to edit it with my new approach, with a better way to accentuate and make, to focus on objects and my new workflow. And especially in the years I developed a way that is more like, that is saving more time into editing, because I make a mental list about all the things that I wanted to get into a picture. And in this way, I save a lot of time into editing.
Okay.
And this helps me a lot to know what I want to edit and to don't over edit. Absolutely.
Where did you learn your fieldcraft and also your editing skills? Was it self-tuition, or did you go through some kind of formal schooling?
No, it was really self-formations.
Okay.
Like maybe some tutorials about DK panel.
Yep.
Especially with the Schoenberg show tutorials. Great. I remember that I was studying day and night with these tutorials, and but it was mostly self-formations, because I'm like this. I like very much to do things by my own, to be very independent. So, it's normal. And also now that I'm studying a little bit Premiere, self-formations.
Yeah. How do you define success with your photography? What does success look like for Isabella?
For sure, I think success is in my opinion, is to be a point of reference for sure, but mostly to be an inspiration for myself.
Yep.
And I feel very fulfilled when I'm able to travel and in the locations that in the countries that I wanted absolutely to visit, and then come back with amazing pictures that I think are amazing, that I'm really satisfied about it. And in my opinion, yes, when I think that I'm inspirational for myself, then everything is reflected outside.
Yeah, okay. Are you doing landscape photography or photography in general full time now, or is it just a part-time thing for you?
Full time.
Yep. Okay. When did you start full time? When did it become your career?
In 2017, before I studied pharmacy, and I decided to see if I could make photography as a work instead of the work as a pharmacist.
Okay.
And I was really open to to become a full-time landscape photography. I was very sure, very determined, very like stubborn about it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, I managed to do it.
Yeah, fantastic. And how have you found that transition from working and where somebody's paying you to going into that sort of, I guess, more gig style economy where money's not always guaranteed on a regular basis? How did you sort of transition from the first to the second?
Yes, in the beginning it was not easy, and because I had absolutely always to also to make things that I didn't like so much, very stressful things like this weekend workshops that for
Yep.
me were too stressful. But then the more and more I became known, I could manage to have a very good, yes, a very good income also with campaigns, with the coaching, Photoshop coaching.
Yep.
Mm, Right now, I feel very happy about it. I feel very okay.
How do you maintain your creative vision and the artistry or artistic integrity whilst also catering for the commercial and client demands that you get? Because sometimes what you want to do is not what the client wants.
Mm, Yes, till now, for example, for the campaigns, usually I was quite free
Okay.
into the campaigns with the brands that I were which that worked with me, because I always proposed the locations and several choices, and then
Mm-hmm.
they chosen the locations, the final locations, and at the end, I always felt quite free. Of course, yes, sometimes they have some requests, especially about the products that they want to promote with my landscape photography. Of course, often I have, but it's okay. For me, no problem. I find always the way to be anyway creative to enjoy
Yeah.
also moments.
How did you, I guess you mentioned becoming more known. How did you manage your personal brand through that process from being lesser known to being better known?
Yeah, at the beginning, always was on Facebook. I
Uh-huh.
remember I started with Facebook, with the Facebook groups, with the communities, and then I remember that was 500 pixels.
Yep, yep.
Then during the years, I started to use a lot Instagram, and so social medias in the last years were very important to,
Mm, mm.
especially to share my pictures with all over with all the world, and especially another important thing was to know a lot English,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
speak English a lot.
Your English is far better than my Italian.
Well, yeah, there is a little bit of my Italian accent still, but for me it's okay. The important is that also my customers with workshops that come mostly from the United States, from foreign countries, they understand,
Yeah, that's
and
the main
it's
thing.
something characteristic, and it's okay.
Excuse me. You've shot quite a lot of places around the world. Where is your favorite? What's one place that you just keep having to go back to because you love it so much?
It's difficult because I visited so many different countries from each other. But for me, last year when I visited Atacama Desert and the Lauca National Park in northern Chile, Chile was incredible for me because I've seen things that I so many colors, so many colorful landscapes that I never seen in other places. Also a lot of contrast. And these boundless landscapes with the vicuñas, the llamas, all these crazy places that I never seen. Also these blue lagunas, these blue lakes, contrasting with the grass, with the yellow grass. It was crazy. I never seen a place like that, and for sure I would like to return, but also a lot of places I would like to return. Also, yes, I visited Far East Russia. Last year I visited Iran.
Okay. What was that like?
Iran or Far East Russia?
Either or both, but Iran, yeah, I'm really interested. It's one place that's actually on my bucket list to get in there and take a look around.
It's very impressive. Especially I visited the Lut Desert, and it was really impressive because we slept on the sand and took pictures from sunset to sunrise.
Fantastic.
All over the night. It's great for night photography.
Yeah, because there is quite dark skies. Yeah,
a crazy sky. But I think the best sky I've seen in Atacama and Lauca National Park.
Yeah, not a lot of cloud in Atacama.
And yes, there is in Atacama. You visit places that are very high altitude. Of course.
Yep.
It's much clearer, the sky.
The sky is clearer. Yeah.
Incredible.
Fantastic. Where you live, there are places nearby that you're always going to, or are you more about getting out and traveling the wider world?
I live in Bologna. In Bologna, yes, northern Italy. Here, close to here, there are hills. But I always prefer, if I go shooting, I always prefer to go directly in the Dolomites or in Tuscany. In the Dolomites, especially in Tuscany, I don't go so much.
No surprises why.
A lot of people, but it's beautiful. Sometimes I also love to visit Tuscany, and maybe in less crowded periods. And in the Dolomites, I always love to go. And I think I visited almost all the places. Maybe there are still some places that I didn't visit. I like to hike a lot.
Yep.
So I prefer to go in the Dolomites directly. The Dolomites are like around 3 hours and a half, 4 hours from here. Yeah. Some locations. Yes, talking about distances, maybe these distances are a lot in Europe, but
not for Australia. No,
like Australia is nothing.
No, I've driven 3 hours for a cup of coffee. But I guess I'm also interested in places like the Dolomites and Tuscany that get a lot of traffic, a lot of tourist traffic. Have you noticed any adverse impacts on the environment because of the number of tourists that are coming to some of those places?
Yes, exactly. For me, yes, a lot, especially in the most famous places. In the Dolomites, luckily, there are places that are not so much well known because maybe there is a lot of hiking to do. Maybe not for photographers, but anyway, in August, in July, in the end of July, especially in August, there are a lot of Italian people because there are holidays. There are the summer holidays. Yeah, in summer there are a lot of people hiking everywhere. Yeah. But not some places not. But for example, there are several locations, especially the locations where you can arrive by car. There are a lot of people, and Of course, not all the people are respectful about the environment, and yeah, it can be, and also of course other reasons that we know about the climate change.
Sure.
But that are not, that are depending for sure on humans. Last year there were mountains that usually have some perennial snow. They didn't have any more that snow on them, and it was crazy.
Yeah, I think one of the things that it's not something we have here in Australia, because the mountains we have not very tall, so you don't get a lot of you don't get a lot of snow a lot of the time, but usually during summer most of the snow has disappeared and there's almost no perennial snow around. But one of the things I've noticed in my travels with talking to other photographers is the retreat of some of the glaciers in particular. I think that's one of the biggest impacts that is a real indicator of what's going on with climate change.
Yeah, exactly. Last year there was a tragedy on Marmolada Glacier because a huge piece fell down and a lot of people died.
Yeah. I remember seeing that. Let's move on to something a little bit cheerier. What's your most memorable photography experience?
For example, when I spent the whole night in the Lut Desert in Iran, pictures from sunset to sunrise, and also night photography in Lauca National Park. I remember when I turned off the lights, everything became dark and I could see like the Milky Way that was so much visible in every detail.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of experiences, a lot of incredible experiences. Especially when you manage to go in places that you just seen maybe on maps or on a picture around the web, and you imagine a lot about those places, and then when you see them with your eyes, it's totally different, and sensation is amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. What about horror stories? Have you seen or have you experienced anything that you were frightened of or lost any gear or anything like that?
No, I'm very paranoid about that. I always take care of everything.
Yep.
And even when I go, for example, when I am on the highway, and I always take with me to the gas station when I go to take some food, I always take with me the gear. I'm very paranoid about it.
Yeah, I'm very much the same. Yeah.
And also when there is a lot of wind, even if the tripod is very stable, I'm always there attached to the tripod because I'm afraid it falls down. It's crazy.
What do you think you've learned about the world through photography?
I learned, yes, about the world. I learned that the world would be a very beautiful place if there would not be border politics, religions, because you could travel all over the world and capture a lot of beautiful landscapes and know a lot of nice people. Yeah. This was the best thing I learned about my traveling. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of friends that I can't see anymore because that I met in countries that I can't visit anymore at the moment. And it's really crazy.
Yeah. Are you the sort of photographer that gets back from a shoot and you're straight onto the computer, straight into editing? Or the sort of photography that prefers to leave things on their hard disk for a bit and they wait until it's the right moment to edit?
Depends. Sometimes, yes, when I get a picture that I really love immediately at the first sight, when I return home, I immediately go to the computer.
Yeah.
But some pictures maybe need more inspiration. In maybe some days I'm not inspired a lot about some weather forecast, as I was saying before. And maybe I need some more moments. For example, in today I opened a panorama of a place that I really love in Dolomites, the Violet Towers, and it's a location that has big tower standing in front of all the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to edit it since last year, but then I never found the time because in the meantime I visited so many locations, so many other places, and I gave the priority on these places. So
Yep.
now I'm editing this one. I said I want to edit it. I want to work on it. And I started to edit it.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, I've got quite a few panoramas in particular where, you take all the frames you need and everything, they go on the hard disk, then you get distracted and you do other things and you never come back to them. I've probably got about 10 or 15 that I really want to get to, but I've just never seemed to find the time.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's normal. It's normal. In Lauca National Park in northern Chile, I visited the Lake Chungara and that volcano, the Parinacota volcano, with the roots in the front of the volcano. It made me dream immediately.
Yeah.
So I immediately had to go in front of the computer and, and edit that picture. But some pictures, maybe I really like them, but then I forget also about them because we have an hard disk full of raw files. And sometimes when I return home with so many pictures, I get confused and I have to tidy up my mind a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's very true. You've got to sit down and actually get your mind in the right place to say, okay, these are the shots that I want to include in the panorama, for example, or this is what I want to do with this set of photos, and just knuckle down and do it. But yeah, it's finding that time and that focus to actually sit and do it that I always struggle with. I'm always wanting to go out and take new and more interesting photos.
Yeah, it's always like this. It's always that you visit other locations and then you forget. It's always.
Do you do much printing of your work?
Yes, I do a lot of printing. I have a printer. Here I don't have so much big printer because I don't know, otherwise I don't know where to put the big prints.
Right.
So for the big prints, I go to a printer. But for the A3 plus prints,
Yep.
I have my Epson SureColor P700. And I print fine art. I really like fine art printing. I really like an emulate paper, photorag barita for some prints.
Yeah.
It depends on what's the effect I want to have on my pictures, but I really like to print by myself.
Yeah. I think it can be very technical, but it's a very rewarding experience, I think, to be able to actually control the color and using the paper that suits the image as well to get the best out of what you're trying to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And also because we use very good cameras with very huge sensor, very beautiful details. Of course, we have to print them because otherwise we keep them on the computer.
That's it. Yeah, no one's ever gonna ever see all that detail on Instagram.
No, exactly. It opens a new world when you print your images. You can see really the details of and the quality of the camera, of the lenses of your work.
Do you do any exhibitions?
No, I don't do an exhibition, but I sell my prints online.
Okay.
I have an e-commerce.
What do you do when you hit a creative wall where things just aren't working? You don't want to go out and take photos, or you don't want to edit. How do you push past that and get back into the mode of thinking that you need to move past that creative sort of stumbling block that everybody gets at some point?
It never happened to me.
Okay.
Of course, sometimes I have usually I travel. When I travel, I just have a big. I just want to go outside and see and discover when I travel. Then usually I travel like I'm usually in summer. Autumn is usually the time of the year, the period of the year when I usually travel a lot. Then I usually take a break to edit the pictures, to do my Photoshop coachings, to think about other things. And yes, in that period I don't go outside, but never happened that I don't want to go outside, even when usually I'm not so much a morning person. So when I have to do the sunrise, to go out for a sunrise, sometimes at the beginning I'm tired, but then I remember that I have to go out to take pictures. So I need to go out, and I immediately wake up, and then everything was worth it. So
nice. It's definitely one of the things I struggle with. It's getting up at 3 a.m. to go and do a sunrise shoot.
Yeah, exactly. Or not sleeping at all. In the desert, in Lut Desert, I didn't sleep at all. Sometimes between when I had to do to take the very long exposure, 5 minutes exposure for the foreground for the night photography shots, and I had to do even focus taking for these views. Of course, I slept between an exposure and the other. Sometimes a little bit.
You mentioned the use of your social media and so forth. How do you feel what is your relationship with social media now? Is it something that you enjoy? Is it something that you just have to do and so you just do it? Where are you with your social media at the moment?
Yeah, I like the way I like it for the reason that I like to share my stories, my experience behind the pictures, and especially with Instagram stories, and also to share which are the results on my feed. And I like that yes, there are a lot of people that are waiting to see my works and that support me since so many years. And this I really like about it. Maybe, yes, of course, it sometimes is difficult maybe to deal with all this. I have to post at a certain time, or I have to post each day or every 2 days. In the last period, I prefer to post like maybe 2 times per week, and just very quality works. Keep very high the quality. For me, it's very important because I've seen that it's very important this, and it's very important because otherwise I somehow lose the inspiration. If I have absolutely to post each day, I prefer to keep the quality high, in my opinion.
I think that's very true. The quality can suffer if you're there plugging away absolutely every day. And I know I fall into the trap sometimes of doing that and putting out into the world stuff that probably shouldn't be out there. Sometimes I put out stuff that is very different. I usually do sunrise seascapes. That's what a lot of people know me for. But then I might go into the forest and take pictures of bark, and I'll post that. And there's very little engagement goes on then. It's just like, poof, nobody wants to know.
Sometimes there are pictures that are a little bit difficult to push as an engagement. And these pictures, for example, are, the minimal things, but not always.
Not always.
And sometimes those pictures I prefer to make a series to make a storytelling behind it. But also, for example, in northern Chile, I found a lot of minimal compositions, minimal scenes, and of course I did a series. Of course, that series had less important engagement than, for example, the wide angle shots with the trees, with the frames of trees, or with the roots, of course. But I think that sometimes to document a little bit my experience is okay to post them, maybe with the storytelling, maybe in a different way, but it's normal. Absolutely.
What do you see as the future of photography, and what do you see as the biggest challenge in that future?
Okay, in the future, I think in the future it will be more and more important to tell the experience behind and the work, the big work that there is behind the picture.
Yep.
This is also talking about in artificial intelligence, but also a lot of new editing technique that aim to make to take, for example, a foreground from a totally different location and put it in a location, and then in the next years probably it will be more difficult to know what is real and what is not.
Okay.
In my opinion. So it will be more and more important to tell the experience, to learn, to do a lot of storytelling, and to show a lot what's behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah.
In my opinion, which is not a problem. I like it, and it helps me to go out from my comfort zone of my pictures, of my computer. Nice at the end.
What in terms of those challenges, you mentioned AI. A lot of people obviously are talking about that. I have the feeling personally that it's not going to impact very much, certainly on what I do, because as you said, it's about the experience. It's not necessarily about the image that you come out with at the end. That might be the reason why I went on the trip in the first place. But for me, that experience of going out into the world and taking photos, that's never going to disappear. I've had to play around with it, but I just don't see it as being terribly interesting, to be honest. Typing a few words into a computer and seeing the images that it spits out, okay, it can spit out images, you know.
Absolutely. Oh, no, absolutely. It will never replace anything. To be honest, yes. From a lot of months ago, I tried to see what is how to do these pictures, but then I got really bored, because for me, the beautiful experience is to go out, and when you can express your creativity, and especially when you can go in a location and be surprised what you find on the location, what you are getting, and the capability that you improve in the years, and to find some kind of new compositions even in a place where you went there a lot of times before. This is incredible. It will never replace other things will never replace this kind of experience.
Yeah.
So that's why I would really get bored. I just can express myself through this. I don't care if I take longer. I don't care if I take longer to develop my images. I don't care, because the end result will be always better, in my opinion, because it's mine. It comes from my soul, from my emotions, from my creativity, and not from other people.
Yeah,
it's mine, something mine.
Absolutely. I guess one of the drawbacks with that, though, is the advent of things like generative fill, and I'm singing the praises of AI denoise, because it gives life to images that would never have seen the light of day for me, usually because technically I haven't quite handled the exposure quite as well, and they're usually much older images. But where do you see the place for those sorts of tools which enable people to enhance an image or change an image beyond what was actually in the frame when you took the photo in the first place?
Yes, for example, the tools that have AI as for example, to improve some technique in post-processing, like the denoise, are okay. But the important thing is always to experience, to do something yours that is yours.
Yeah, totally agree.
From yourself.
What do you like to do when you're not out shooting or not doing photography?
I like to do a lot of sport. I like to hike. I started to go diving. I'm taking all the diving licenses, because in the future I would like to do underwater photography too. Also,
fantastic. I look forward to seeing some of your underwater photography.
I'm looking forward, and now in next weekend I'm going to do some. I'm going to take the diving license, the 18 meters diving license, the open water. and then I'm looking forward. I can't wait. And yes, of course, my instructors always told me that I have to become a good diver before taking pictures. Also because I have to see what I like.
Yeah,
Because
you have to survive to be able to bring the pictures
no,
back. So.
what I like underwater. And yes, at the beginning, maybe you have to try with something small, with some small camera or an action cam, because of course I would like to start with the high quality, with the housing and so on.
All the
But
lights,
of course, first I need to improve my technique also in diving.
Yeah.
But I think it's an amazing adventure. I'm really looking forward to do it. And yes, and then editing, Photoshop coaching, I spend my days like this. Yeah. Photography, yes, photography wasn't a very big part of my days until some years ago, but now I want also to do some more things like diving, like more sport, hiking, a lot of hiking.
A lot of people might, my wife in particular, might think that there's nothing in my life bigger than photography. But yeah, I think living life and getting out and experiencing things aside from when you've got a camera in your hand is a wonderful experience too.
Exactly. Yes, photography for sure will always be the protagonist in my life, even in diving in the future.
Yeah. I can't help looking at things and going, yeah, well, I can see a frame there. I can see how that would work. Are there any photographers that you think I should be talking to on the podcast?
There are a lot of photographers for sure. A lot of photographers. Maybe Daniel Corden, for example.
Okay. Yep.
Daniel
I know
Corden,
him. Yep.
Arcadamus, and yes, these are good names also.
Yeah. Okay.
They are quite famous.
I do have them on my list. I haven't spoken to them yet, though.
Yes, no, they are very, yes. And yes, but there are so many very inspiring photographers that I see every day in social media.
I'll never run out of people to talk to.
It's very difficult to.
I have one more question for you. For my listeners, it can be one of the most important, but also one of the most divisive issues for landscape photographers. I think I know what you're going to say when I ask you this question, but you might surprise me. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Like that?
Pineapple on pizza.
Pineapple on pizza? No, I don't like so much pineapple on pizza.
I didn't think you
I never tried. Actually, I never tried pineapple on pizza.
You've never tried it? Ah, okay.
I never tried. For me, it's very strange. Indeed, there are very few pizzerias that put pineapple on pizza here in Italy.
I think it's more an American or an Australian thing. Yeah.
I think sometimes they do it for tourists, but I've seen also very few people taking. I love a lot of chili on pizza. A lot of chili. I love to put chili everywhere. So, yeah. But the pineapple is because it's very strange for me to put something sweet on the pizza together with the tomato and mozzarella also.
Okay. My girls like a Nutella pizza.
Yeah, Nutella pizza, of course, without
the meat and
it's okay. I remember when I was a child, to do a joke, when my parents were cooking the pizza in the oven, I opened the oven and I put Nutella on the pizza, and my mom got really angry, and I ran away.
My wife and I were in a small country town, and we went into this place and we bought a pizza, and it was supposed to have barbecue sauce instead of tomato as the base sauce. But I tell you, I am absolutely 100% certain that they used chocolate syrup instead of the barbecue sauce. It tasted so sweet. It was just ridiculous.
It's very strange. Sometimes we have some, but yeah, also for me to put chili everywhere, the Carolina Reaper powder everywhere on meals, maybe it's not really everywhere, but it's really too much sometimes.
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me, Isabella. It's been wonderful getting to know you and getting to know how you do what you do. Where can people find your work?
Yes, thank you. Yes, yes.
Where can people find your work? Website, etc. Yep.
Okay, let's say again the question.
Yeah, sure.
Because
I'll start with thanks very much, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much for talking to me, Isabella. It's been wonderful getting to know you a little bit better and knowing how you do what you do. Where can people find your work?
On my website for sure, isabellatabacchi.com. On my print shop, isabellanscapes.com. On Instagram, Instagram is my most known social media that I have. Isabella Landscapes. On Twitter, Bellandscapes. On Facebook, Isabella Landscapes. And yes, I think I told the most important place.
I'll make sure there's links in the show notes. Thank you once again, Isabella. It's been fantastic talking to you.
Thank you too for inviting me in this podcast. It was very interesting.
Thanks very much. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also on Vero, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.